Buenos días. Yo soy Pedro Aranzadi, soy el director de Universia en España y la persona de Universia que forma parte del Board of Directors del OpenCourseWare. Y les voy a presentar a tres personas que también forman parte del Board of Directors, como son Meena, Hwang a mi izquierda, de la Universidad de Corea, Terri, Bais, de la Universidad de Notre en Estados Unidos, y Philipp, Schmidt, de la Universidad de Western Cape en Sudáfrica. Ahora me voy a cambiar con Meena, voy a hacer mi presentación, os voy a resumir un poco nuestra experiencia en este proyecto tan bonito y tan interesante como es el OpenCourseWare y lo que creo que Universia ha podido aportar de valor añadido a lo que vosotros, universidades españolas, pues habéis hecho, el trabajo que habéis hecho y lo que van a seguir haciendo a partir de ahora, y ahora ponemos el foco también en las universidades latinoamericanas. Bueno, yo voy a hacer una demostración, digamos, en vivo y en directo de lo que hemos hecho en estos meses. Nosotros lo que hemos desarrollado ha sido un portal. Bueno, voy a hacer un poquito de historia previamente. Universia lleva involucrado en este asunto del OpenCourseWare desde aproximadamente el año 2000. Steve a lo mejor me corrige, pero empezamos yo creo que por aquellas fechas, básicamente traduciendo los materiales que el MIT había puesto en directo, en directo, online. Seleccionábamos los cursos que nos parecían más interesantes y con traductores profesionales y profesores del área, pues íbamos traduciendo esos materiales tanto al español o castellano como a portugués y poniéndolos online, hasta que llegamos a la cifra de aproximadamente 100 cursos, y ahí fue un momento en el que cambió, digamos, ahí se empieza a constituir el consorcio y cambia un poco la labor de Universia en este proyecto. A partir de entonces empezamos a promover que sean las universidades socias las que inicien el proceso de poner en abierto, en Internet y para todo el mundo, pues los materiales que los profesores utilizan en su día a día en las aulas. Y a partir de ahí pues empezamos un poco a meter riñones, digamos, a apostolar convencidos de la bondad del proyecto por diversas cuestiones, ¿no? Una porque fomentará, entendemos, la calidad de esos materiales que nuestros profesores utilizarán en las aulas al ponerlos en abierto, al ponerlos bajo el escrutinio del público en general. A su vez, al poder ser reutilizados, otros profesores los podrán no solo utilizar, sino también mejorar óptimamente. Entonces, por ese lado, eso es una de las funciones que creemos que cumple, ¿no? En el largo plazo, pues mejorar la calidad de los materiales que usamos. También creemos que es una herramienta extraordinaria de marketing, ¿no? De que las universidades se den a conocer al mundo a través de Internet y muestren lo que enseñan y cómo lo enseñan, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, digo que a partir de ahí cambió la función de Universia en el proyecto, y en estos 2 años o ya pasados, yo creo, pues bueno, pues hemos conseguido incorporar unas cuantas decenas de universidades, sobre todo españolas de momento, pero también alguna latinoamericana, y ahora ya digo que el foco lo ponemos en Latinoamérica. Hemos conseguido, como digo, sumar unas cuantas decenas de universidades al proyecto OpenCourseWare, de las cuales muchas ya también tienen sus sites OpenCourseWare con un buen número de asignaturas a disposición del público mundial, ¿no? Entonces, nosotros en ese interim lo que hemos ido creando ha sido este portal que estáis viendo, en donde lo que hacemos es referenciar cada uno de esos cursos. En la actualidad creo que tenemos alrededor de 500 cursos, digamos, referenciados en este portal, y el asunto, yo creo, la enjundia del tema han sido 3 cosas. Primero, el normalizar algunas cosas. Esto es una cosa peliaguda, muchas veces nos lleva a discusiones sin fin sobre cómo normalizar las cosas. Bueno, nosotros hemos tirado por el camino en medio, hemos elegido una, hemos seguido por ahí, y será buena, mala o regular, pero bueno, ahí está, ¿no? Lo que introdujimos en un momento inicial fue que todos los cursos que referenciásemos iban en algún momento a estar clasificados por el área de conocimiento, que entendemos que será buena, mala o regular, pero todo profesor conoce cuál es la suya, ¿no? Le representará más o menos, pero lo que necesitábamos era un camino para las arañas de los buscadores que empezasen desde la página de inicio y llegasen hasta la última página del último material de la última universidad, dándole un camino que fuese enlace a enlace, y necesitábamos una estructura de árbol y ahí algo tuvimos que elegir. Luego, esa normalización nos permite traducir a priori esas tablas, esas ramas del árbol, y eso lo hemos hecho a 14 idiomas, que son pues los que veis un poco aquí arriba, los nacionales, los propios de España, el español, perdón, catalán, euskera y gallego. Luego, por ser Universia, pues también portugués y brasileño, que hay alguna diferencia. Y luego, bueno, pues los idiomas más populados o más, digamos, coherentes, ¿no? Como son algunos idiomas europeos, como son el alemán, el inglés, el francés, el italiano, y algunos otros, digamos, más lejanos, como pueden ser el árabe, el japonés y el chino y el ruso, ¿no? Entonces, desde el minuto 1, con este portal con cero cursos y eso sí, la tabla de áreas de conocimiento traducida a estos 14 idiomas, pues ya tenía un tráfico espectacular, ¿no? Que es a lo que intentamos es la tesis que pretendemos demostrar. Si normalizamos las cosas, las traducimos y las posicionamos en Internet como Dios manda, pues superan con creces cualquier expectativa de tráfico que hayamos podido tener anterior. Y es lo que voy a intentar demostrar ahora en vivo y en directo, ¿no? Entonces, aparte de estas áreas de conocimiento, que fue la primera normalización, luego lo que ha sido intentar normalizar, y lo hemos conseguido, pero creo que nos quedan un par de vueltas de tuerca, es normalizar también las palabras claves que cada uno de los autores, a través de las cuales clasifica esos materiales, ¿no? Y esas palabras claves también traducirlas pues a los 14 idiomas que he mencionado. De manera que si en Google buscamos, y repito que en este portal hay referenciados 500 cursos. A ver. Pero tiene 803.000 páginas indexadas en Google, cada una de ellas diferente, y todo esto hace referencia a las diversas palabras claves y las permutaciones que hacemos con palabras, nombres de autores, de universidades, áreas de conocimiento, etcétera, etcétera. O sea que para 400 y pico cursos, cerca de 500, hay 803.000 de momento maneras diferentes de llegar a ellos a través de Universia. Por ejemplo, una demostración que hicimos en el último Consejo de Administración de Universia fue a través de una palabra clave que era aerodinámica numérica, ¿no? Como veis, lo he estado probando antes, a ver si salía todavía. Y efectivamente, pues la primera referencia en Google que aparece es la del curso propiamente dicho, que es de esta universidad, de la Politécnica de Madrid, y como no puede ser menos, pues ahí está el primero, ¿no? El segundo ya es el sitio nuestro de Universia, ¿no? Si pincho aquí, pues me lleva a una página donde me habla de este curso, me da una breve descripción y al pinchar pues ya me lleva directamente al curso en cuestión de la Politécnica, ¿no? Lo que quería mostrar es que si a esta página, que aquí veis que pone es de español, le pongo a R de árabe, me lleva a esta otra. Yo no entiendo una palabra de árabe. Tenemos aquí también presente alguna universidad marroquí que a lo mejor me puede corregir si esto está bien o mal traducido, pero entiendo que eso en árabe es también aerodinámica numérica. Si vuelvo a Google y lo pongo aquí, pues aquí está el mismo curso y llegan a esa página en árabe donde les explica cómo es este curso de la Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. Bueno, yo creo que aquí ya hay un valor añadido bastante evidente, porque evidentemente pues la Universidad Politécnica de Madrid publica sus cosas en castellano, pues igual que la mayoría de universidades españolas, y esto pues no lo habían contemplado. Bueno, aquí esto lo que nos lleva luego es saber que en lo que va de mes llevamos 122.000, esta es la Nielsen Online, que nos mide el tráfico no solo de este proyecto de OpenCourseWare, sino de todo lo que hacemos en Universia. Por Universia en general, al mes pasan aproximadamente 9 millones de usuarios únicos de un porrón de países del mundo, ¿no? Este proyecto, hoy por hoy, pues bueno, claro, comparado con los 9 millones, pues no es mucho, pero dada la temática aerodinámica numérica, hay que estar muy aburrido para buscar eso por ocio. Pues hombre, en este mes llevamos 122.000 usuarios únicos que han visitado el portal. Lo que quería es mostrar también algunas tendencias, algunos hitos, el que veáis cómo esa normalización y esas traducciones, a medida que hemos ido incorporando traducciones paulatinamente al portal, eso se ha ido notando en el día a día. Y voy a sacar aquí. Hoy es 29, no es 30, ¿no? Por día, venga, navegadores. Enero, ¿no? Bueno, pues esta es la tendencia diaria del tráfico del portal, donde se aprecian los valles que son los fines de semana. Aquí este valle grande pues son las Navidades, en donde ya hay que estar desesperado para buscar cosas de este estilo. Y entonces veis cómo a medida que íbamos introduciendo no solo traducciones, sino se iba populando esto de palabras claves, a medida que los autores iban subiendo cursos, etcétera, etcétera, pues iba el tema incrementando hasta ahora, en donde estamos, en cerca de, bueno, pasados los 6.000 navegadores únicos que llegan a nuestro portal, porque nos encuentran básicamente en Internet. O sea, el 99,9%, esta cifra no me la tengáis en cuenta, me la acabo de inventar, pero un porcentaje muy elevado no lo conocen esta iniciativa, entonces llegan al portal porque se tropiezan con él básicamente en Internet, como os he demostrado antes, ¿no? Y entonces, otra cosa que os quería enseñar es qué demonios están buscando esta gente, estos usuarios de Internet que se tropiezan con el portal de Universia, ¿no? Entonces, el ranking de frases en lo que va de mes, 01, 09... Esto tarda un poquito porque son muchas, ¿no? Pero bueno. Ok, bueno, pues la primera, tipos de conocimiento, luego OpenCourseWare, y ya la tercera ya empieza ya a tener que ver algo con alguno de los cursos, como definición de media, ¿no? La quinta es en árabe, no sé qué significa esto, no lo he podido traducir antes, pero bueno, espero que sea algo razonable. Y bueno, veis que hay mucha gente del mundo árabe, de países como Argelia, Marruecos, etcétera, etcétera, que son usuarios pues bastante asiduos, ¿no? del portal, ¿no? Y así, a medida que vamos hacia abajo, pues hasta la última, por ejemplo, pues ya se van viendo cada vez más palabras, digamos, en alguno de los 14 idiomas a las que hemos traducido. En definitiva, nuestra tesis es que si normalizamos, y para ello nos ponemos de acuerdo, a veces prescindiendo de algunas cosas, ¿no? Y no siendo demasiado beligerantes como muchas veces somos, ¿no? En defender pues lo propio y tal, si nos ponemos de acuerdo en cosas muy básicas, que pues las cosas mejoran. Si luego traducimos las cosas, es decir, muchas veces no solo queremos que la gente por el mundo mundial lea el Quijote, sino que además se lo lea en español, pues cosa que es muy complicada. Entonces, si conseguimos llegar a consensos, traducir las cosas y poner las cosas en el idioma del target al que queremos llegar, pues llegaremos. Y todo eso se traducirá al final en tráfico, en gente usando estos materiales, que es definitivamente lo que queremos, ¿no? Que profesores del mundo mundial se beneficien de esta iniciativa de encontrar materiales, en nuestro caso de universidades españolas e iberoamericanas, y que los utilicen, ¿no? Y esta es básicamente la exposición que yo quería hacer, y una mejor práctica que creo que aporta valor añadido a la iniciativa vuestra de las universidades españolas y iberoamericanas de la que hacemos paraguas. Muchas gracias. Your turn, Meena. There you go.
Good morning. My name is Meena Hwang from Korea University, Seoul, Korea. It is with great pleasure that I give this talk to you today. Jesus, my friends in Universia, asked me if I could do a little presentation on best practices or good practice in OCW. And I didn't think of saying no at the time because I figured I will have to do anything that I can if there's a request. But then again, I thought, a good practice. I don't really have a lot of good practice. Maybe I have a lot of good mistakes in OCW that I can share with you, and maybe you can learn something so that you can not make the same mistakes. And then I thought, mistake is a very negative word. So my real title for today is just good tries in OCW. I do try a lot of new things, and I have a reason for that. Now, so the agenda for today is to talk about the goal in starting the OCW project at Korea University, and different tries for content generating methods, and different tries for platform and technology, and I'll conclude the talk. Okay, I'm sorry, do you have the time? I need to keep the time. Okay, thank you. Okay, so at first, when I learned about OCW, I thought starting the OCW would have such goals. Our university mission is to save the nation through education because it was founded in 1905 when there was Japanese colonization. And the university was founded in order to really just do something for Korean people through education. And the second goal would be to enhance quality of higher education in Korea through openness, and also to assist the developing world in getting more access to education. This is a very far-fetched goal, but if anybody wants to hear more about it, I will be more than happy to talk about it in person later. Now, so I thought about all these beautiful goals, and then I went to the VP of Academic Affairs to get an approval for starting OCW. He heard me speak, and he goes, okay, you may start. And he said, you can start as long as you don't ask me for money. So then I'm thinking, okay, I think I need to rearrange my goals a little bit. So now I have a more realistic goal. My more realistic goal is to start OCW with as little money as possible and to demonstrate that it can be done in a participant-driven manner with as little money as possible, again, and to demonstrate that opening up education doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. See, it requires the right methods, technology, and maybe passion and will. So now that I have more realistic goals, I have to think about what to do. And these are the things that I have to do. Find ways to gather content, and I have to think about what are the best content generating methods, and find ways to show that content. So I have to think about what is the effective platform on the internet, and what would be the technology standard for making those contents. So about content generating, I decided that not just because we have no money, but I thought it would be better to just not have any financial incentives for the faculty because of sustainability issues. When you start to pay them for their courses, they will just assume that they will be paid forever. So I thought that was not a good idea for sustainability. And I strongly believed in ask and it will be given. So I started to call up everybody that I know and said, please, please, please give me a course. And quite a few of them did give me a course. And I thought about ways to support them in other ways than to just give them some money. And then I also thought about student-generated contents, which I will talk about a little more in detail. So for faculty support, of course, IP clearance, intellectual property clearance, will have to be one of them. And then I started to review their English lecture notes, because Korea University has this globalization initiative in which many faculty members will have to teach in English. And Korea is not an English-speaking country. We are not very happy with speaking English. So many people are very paranoid, many faculty are very paranoid about their English abilities, and they're very happy to get review on their English lecture notes. They're very happy about it. And we started to support them for different methods. So these are some of the trials that we did. We offered services in digitizing handwritten lecture notes for engineering faculty. For example, we digitized a course in engineering mathematics. His lecture notes were all handwritten, and he didn't have the time to digitize it using MathType or Visio or any other programs. So we did digitizing handwritten lecture notes, and we tried video recording lectures in many different formats. We tried IP camera in the room, we tried little webcam, we tried very high resolution camera. And then we also had a little production of flash animation courses. So these are just little things that we tried, and if you want to know more about it, you can contact me later for more details. As for the student-generated contents, we had 3 attempts. One is course portfolio contest, the other is translation of Open Yale courses, and the third is video courses for college entrance examination. We ask our students to become prosumer, which is a producer plus consumer. So we not only ask them to use OCW materials from abroad, but to make their own material. So the first thing we did was to have a course portfolio contest in which we asked our students to submit the syllabus, course summary, lecture notes, exams, supplementary material, and reflection on the course. And this is one of the notes that we received from a student in PDF format. So the agenda, this is the agenda. And he just wrote notes of everything that he heard in the class. I showed this to his professor, and his professor said, "These are so much better than my notes." So let's see, 26 pages of this. He really took really good notes. So. The evaluation was done on the criteria of, does the portfolio show the course structure well? Does the portfolio display active student learning? Because, well, learning is a very important factor for us. And the judges were CTL people and the faculty in that department. Prizes were not very extravagant. They were just iPod, digital camera. So we made very inexpensive OCW courses through this contest. Now, the translation of Open Yale courses. I have some students translating the script of Open Yale courses, and some of them are making derivatives of the lecture notes in a study group. So the reason we're doing this is because a lot of Korea University students speak very good English, but the rest of Korea don't speak very good English. So they are doing this for the purpose of having more people have access to very good lectures. And then I have another group of students who are making college entrance exam preparation courses, which is very expensive in Korea. So if you're a high school student and if you want to go to a good university, you have to go to a private institution and pay a lot of money. Now, Korea University students are top students in Korea, and they have the ability and the image that Koreans have of Korea University students. It's very good. So they have very good expectations of Korea University students. So we are now in the production of the courses, and we recorded in the Multimedia Center of Korea University, who is just charging me for the tape cost. So again, this is a very inexpensive way of producing more educational material. Now, so do I just make my students slave? Yes, in a way, yes. The feedback from the volunteers is that they're really happy about it. They're saying, if not us, who can, you know? And they say, I was never taught how to share until now. They're saying, from kindergarten on, we never learned how to share in the school. And they said, this is a real education, which I'm very, very happy about. And they're saying, I always wanted to do something good, I just didn't know how. Can I write about this in the graduate school application? And they say, yeah, go ahead. You deserve it. And I write recommendation for them. I try to do everything that I can to assist them to pursue further studies. And some of them are just saying, this is really cool. And many of them, all of them, always thank me for the opportunity, which I think, I don't deserve to be thanked. I really should be thanking them. But this one kid said, you will let me graduate, right? Because this is a kid who was doing programming on our mobile platform, and he spent many nights just programming. So after a little while, he said, you will let me graduate. And I said, don't worry, you will graduate. So that was the content generating part. Now I want to move on to the platform because it is very important. OpenCourseWare is web-based, so it is the technology, and the technology standard is very important. And of course, I have to do this with no money. You remember that, right? So we started on EduCommons, which was given for free from the CASEL, which was funded by Hewlett Foundation. And we ran into many problems. I spoke to Guillermo from UPM yesterday, and we are having a lot of discussions with many other people regarding the use and installation of EduCommons. Now, because I figured I cannot be just dependent on one platform, I decided to do some trials with other platforms such as Moodle and another content management system from videolectures.net, who decided that they will open their CMS for free. And we are also experimenting with Second Life. And Second Life has the interoperability with Moodle, and they call it Sloodle. So Second Life is Sloodle and mobile platforms. So we are experimenting with all these other platforms. Second Life, we have a study hall for people who want to study with OCW materials. And these are some of the pictures. See, Korea is very well networked as far as the internet infrastructure goes. A lot of the kids, a lot of our students do network games like StarCraft. So they're very used to this kind of virtual environment. So this is just another platform that I'm experimenting with. Actually, this cost a lot of money. It wasn't just for OCW purpose. It was for the whole campus to be built on the in the virtual world. It cost about 50,000 euros, I think. So there's Moodle, which works very well with Second Life. And interoperability of platforms will become more and more important. So that's what I want to do a little more research on. Now, for the mobile platform, the purpose, of course, in my idealistic world was to think of ways to provide more accessibility to developing economies. And that's when the Google Android Challenge came about. Google offered, it was a contest for programmers on mobile platform. They opened a software development kit to programmers to make any kind of programs that can be done on mobile platform. So we decided to do something educational. And this is the mobile LMS that our students programmed. And you see the MIT OpenCourseWare courses. And we made a viewer for PDF files or MP4 video files that can be viewed on the phone. So we made a converting viewer. And of course, this was done by the students. And I was very heartbroken when I found out that 1,800 teams applied in this contest. And they chose 50 teams to go to the second round, and those 50 teams were granted $250,000. And we belong to the 1,750 teams. So we didn't go to the second round. But this was a very good try. And we will continue to do more research on mobile platform. Another thing that we did with mobile was to make a program that you can ask questions by SMS, because everybody in Korea are we call them the thumb people. So you do like your SMS all the time. So far I told you about how all these different tries that I had with content generating methods and also with a platform. So the reality back in 2007 was I was speaking to the VP of Korea University, who told me you can start the project as long as you don't ask me for any money. And now the reality now in January 2009 is that 7 universities in Korea are in Korea OpenCourseWare Consortium after Korea University started. And the government is preparing for supporting OCW OER activities. And we are in the process of signing a bilateral agreement for collaboration with Japan OpenCourseWare Consortium and possible joint project with videolectures.net. We are talking about having a joint mobile research with them. And our students who slaved for many hours will have more formal recognition starting this semester within Korea University. So this is a reality up until right now. So in conclusion, I would more than welcome all new ideas and suggestions from you guys, because I will keep trying new things. And I would also welcome collaborative working relationships, because I just believe that it is just better that way. So if you're interested in mobile platform, if you're interested in Second Life, Moodle, Sloodle, whatever word that you saw here today, you can always give me a call and see if you can do something with us, or if your students can do something with our students, whatever is fine. If you want to just talk, that's okay too. I would welcome any questions about what was talked about today, because I didn't have a lot of time to show you many things. I was just zipping through everything. And this is my email address, meena.hwang@korea.ac.kr. And I will conclude by saying thank you very much.
Pues ahora les... ¿Esto funciona? No funciona. But it's Terri's turn? Or whatever.
I don't have a slide to do. I thought I was going last.
Okay, bueno, entonces es el turno de Philipp Schmidt de la Universidad de Western Cape de South Africa. De Sudáfrica, perdón. You need a computer?
No, thanks. Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and share some of the experiences that we've had in South Africa and talk about OpenCourseWare in general, and some of the things that have worked in our context and that were important benefits for us as a South African university. So I'm going to speak very briefly about 3 different topics. One is the role of champions, the people who drive OpenCourseWare projects. I think I could probably just point to Meena, and then all the things I was going to say about what champions are, you just experienced in the last 20 minutes. The second point is, and I will come back to this point, the second point is the opportunities of collaboration between institutions, which are kind of secondary benefits of OpenCourseWare. And I'm going to give some examples there. And the third one is a slightly different aspect of student involvement, but it also refers to some of the things that Meena started talking about. As I speak about these 3 points, I'm going to speak about the experience that we've had at the University of the Western Cape with them, but I'm also going to try to relate it to the work of the OpenCourseWare Consortium and how the consortium could play a role in those 3 things. Maybe just 2 sentences about UWC. We are what's referred to as a previously disadvantaged university in South Africa. The previously, I'm not so sure, but we graduate the largest number of non-white students in South Africa of any university. 90% of our students are non-white. We're based on the outskirts of Cape Town, and while we have many challenges, we also have a very proud history. And it's a very enthusiastic and vibrant place. UWC was an important institution in ending apartheid. A lot of the ANC exiles, academics, came back to South Africa as through positions at UWC, and then drove the last stages of that transformation of the country as academics at UWC. So there's a very proud history of fighting for political freedom, and in a way that's made our work on promoting the freedom of knowledge and of information easier, because people can make that connection. They remember that legacy, and we've been able to connect that to the challenges we have now. So the 3 points. First one, very briefly, the role of champions. For me, champions are truly a crucial aspect of successful OpenCourseWare projects, and they are important at 2 levels, I would argue. One is the hands-on champion. That's the person that really makes it happen. It takes a lot of time speaking with individual professors. There's a lot of awareness raising needed. You need to try out things, different technology solutions. Some things might work in your environment, some others might not. And also some institutions, the incentive structures within the institution often is not designed to support OpenCourseWare publishing. So professors understand very well that they have to teach, and they need to publish research in order to be promoted. The OpenCourseWare work sometimes, or in many institutions, doesn't quite fit in there. So you have to explain very well what are the benefits for participation, how can we make it very easy for you. And it's just a lot of groundwork. It takes a lot of passion and enthusiasm for these ideas. So that is the one level. But the other level is also a champion at the senior management or leadership level. And this has been incredibly important at UWC, where the Deputy Vice Chancellor, who was responsible for the strategy around technology in the university, who was my boss till very recently, had done a great deal of work convincing the leadership of the university that OpenCourseWare and open education and open source software were really important things for an institution like UWC to be engaged in and to be supportive of. So we had a policy that allows our professors and encourages them to publish their materials under free and open licenses, which made my job then as the second champion much, much easier, that I could, if I needed to, I could go to him and say, do you know someone in this department? I'm struggling to find a champion that I can work with there. And then through that senior support, it was much easier. A lot of doors opened for my work. It lent credibility to the project that I could also refer to the rector who was supportive of it. So it's very important to find that one person at least at the senior leadership level that believes these ideas are valid and supports it. So I'm running ahead of my notes, so let me just check I'm not forgetting anything here. Let me come back to the first champion. There are 2 things that are really important in the work of that person. One is awareness raising, which I spoke about a little bit. And the other one is what we refer to as making the case. It's why should we do this as a professor? Why should we do this as an institution? And the OpenCourseWare Consortium has tried to make that part of the projects much easier. So on our website, there's a section that gives you some of the arguments you could use within your institution. The toolkit that Terri has been working on over the last few months also contains a wealth of information why this is good and what are some of the arguments you can use within an institution. So the consortium is really trying to give you some support through materials and documents. At the same time, we are also a network of universities, and if someone is starting a project and they're not quite sure how to navigate a particular point, that network is really supportive. People are very willing to share what they've gone through. They'll send you their, for example, I've sent our policy to a number of people, and I said, well, this part we would do differently now. So when you draft your policy, you don't have to make the same mistakes that we made. So there's a community of organizations that are really supportive and that help those champions in the different institutions. And the second point I would like to speak about briefly is the opportunity for networking and collaboration that comes from being a member of this network or community, which is often overlooked. We focus very much on publishing materials, and that is the core of what all these projects have been doing, and it's also related. It's also at the core of the benefits. And I really enjoyed the first presentation about Universia, where I'd never seen someone demonstrate in such a hands-on fashion, the direct impact on traffic to your website, on people who might not be aware of your work from other languages coming to your website, and all these direct benefits that are related to publishing high-quality course materials. So that is at the core. But there's also this other aspect that we could call secondary benefits, that if you are looking for relationships with a very interesting group of institutions from all over the world, and specifically spanning developed and developing countries, then this is a good community to be a part of, I would argue. And why is that? I think one reason is that the values that underpin all of our work are values of sharing, of collaboration, of innovation. So there's a willingness to engage with others. It's very open and inclusive, and we are looking for more members and more organizations to come join our work rather than try to fence off what we are doing. So there's just an underlying philosophy and a set of values that make it very easy to engage with the universities that are part of the consortium. Just some examples of what this means in practice. From the consortium's perspective, we support groups of institutions that seem to have similar interests. So we look for institutions that are working in similar fields. And one example recently was the health field. So there were a number of universities that were publishing health materials, and they were interested in collaborating more, and they were also interested in linking with universities in developing countries. And so the consortium facilitated a meeting that brought together these institutions and gave them the opportunity to talk about how could this work, what's the relationship between developed countries and developing countries. And there might be potential projects that are coming out of this. In the case of the University of the Western Cape, there have been a number of really interesting relationships that we have developed through our work in the consortium. And just one example, I had a conversation yesterday with a colleague from a university in the Netherlands, and we will now be looking at doing things that include joint PhD support. So they have a PhD researcher who's really interested in working in South Africa, and they suggested that maybe together we could support that person. Student exchange, which is kind of on the basis of a collaboration on course materials, but it really deals with bringing students from South Africa to the Netherlands to take courses. Those are things that are not, you wouldn't say these are directly related to OpenCourseWare, but they are a direct outcome of our relationship in this OpenCourseWare consortium. So I think that is a great opportunity that people often don't think about when they're thinking about OpenCourseWare publishing, that there is a network of universities that are interested in sharing and collaborating. And then finally, and Meena made this part much easier, thank you, is the involvement of students. So there are some pragmatic reasons, especially for an institution like UWC, where we had very similar issues around budget and financial support. So one pragmatic reason is that students are a relatively cheap resource, but they're also often the most skilled people to do courseware publishing, because they have often taken those courses and they have taken the notes. They know the contents often as well, or almost as well as the professor. They also tend to have very advanced technical skills, which some of our professors don't have or are not interested in as much as students. So they're very familiar with computers. They're very comfortable in social networking. So for them to learn to produce OpenCourseWare is much easier from a technical side of view. So there's that aspect. But I think more importantly, and Meena also focused on those things, is that OpenCourseWare is really part of a new... There are some changes in education that are related to OpenCourseWare and open education. And I would argue that involving students in the production of OpenCourseWare can actually teach them skills that they need to be effective participants in the knowledge economy anyway. It's skills related to absorbing larger amounts of knowledge, analyzing them, editing them, regrouping them. It's skills related to tools. How do we navigate social networking communities? How do we work with wikis? What's the benefit of blogs? How does audio recording work? These are all skills that are becoming more and more important, and involving students in OpenCourseWare projects is a great way to help them build those skills. And finally, and this is a very, well, actually I think you would agree with that, but it's also a lot of fun to work with students. So I've done a lot of work with professors, and that can also be fun, but it's definitely a more serious engagement. It takes longer. With students, you just say, this is this is what we're doing, and they say, this is a fantastic idea, let's do it. And they're running with it, and they're enthusiastic, and there's much less convincing that is needed. So I enjoyed working with students tremendously. And just a quick example from UWC, what we've done there is we've done funny thing is we've also used iPods as incentives. So that seems to work for students across the world, iPods. And we have invited them to create the course materials for their courses on a wiki, but the idea was not to produce courseware in the traditional way that's then published on our courseware site, but really to help them support their own learning. So the materials that they produced are on a public website, but the goal was to help them share their notes. If you miss a lecture, you can get the audio file from that lecture. If you have a question, you can post the question. And the guidelines were very loose. We basically said, here's a wiki, here are iPods with little microphones that you can record your lectures with. This is what we think could work on this website, but run with it. And the incredible thing was, some students didn't run with it. They were very enthusiastic for 1 week when they got the iPods, and then they weren't so enthusiastic anymore. But the majority actually stayed very involved and motivated, and some of them did incredible things. They started adding, so they added all the materials. Their fellow students would come to demand the uploading of materials. So if they hadn't uploaded the audio file the afternoon of that lecture, the other students would start complaining to them. They would say, where are the audio files that should be there? They started adding other materials about bursaries. The last time I checked, the health students had added a little note, please don't forget your vaccinations for the next semester because we're doing field work and you'll need to be vaccinated to participate. So they really took ownership of this, started adding a lot of materials that are not related to typical courseware, and took responsibility of their education in some way. And this, I went to this solar house yesterday here at the Polytechnic, which is a mind-blowing project. And so maybe this issue of taking ownership of your education is not an issue that is so important in this context. But I can assure you that at a university where most of the students have no one in the family, in the broader family, who's ever been to university, where most people didn't even finish high school, the prospect of entering a university and then being in charge of your own education is incredibly challenging. So the fact that these students, through technology and through these ideas of sharing, are actually doing that, for us was a fantastic experience. So just in closing, the role of champions, I think, is quite important at these two levels. The benefits of collaboration that come from working with the consortium or this network of universities are significant, and involving students has a lot of benefits. And then I would just add to what Meena said, any questions, the consortium mailing list and network is there to help or share their experiences, and hopefully we will see lots of you again in the future. Thank you very much.
Bueno, y por último tenemos a Terri Bais, que ha sido responsable del OpenCourseWare de la Universidad de Notre en Estados Unidos y lleva una temporadita siendo la directora ejecutiva interina del consorcio mundial. Terri, you start working?
I think is this one working? Should be. I'm just too short, so maybe I could have been a little closer. I've got a marvelous job. When my children ask me what I do all day, I say, I drink coffee, and I play with my computer, and I talk with really amazing, fascinating people for most of my day. And sometimes I get to see them in different parts of the world. So first of all, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this with my time. It's a real pleasure to be able to hang out with people like you. The other thing I get to do is to do what Meena describes doing, except I get to do it with all of you. So I'm going to demonstrate that here because I held off on making slides because I wanted to hear what Meena and Philipp and Pedro were going to say before I prepared things because I wanted to be able to fill in some gaps. So I'm going to tell Meena to please make me a slide. This is delegation. It's marvelous. And I'm not going to make it too hard on her because we all know that if you make things too hard, it demoralizes people. And yeah, I think tenacious was the nicer word that Steve used. And I just wanted to say feedback. Feedback, F-E-E-D. Sometimes you have to give instructions when you're delegating. At OCW, no, at the @ sign. This is an email address. Sorry, feedback at, different. Spanish keyboard. This will take a moment. This is actually an object lesson that often we do lose things in translation. Just write at with 2 capital letters. They know what you mean. OCWconsortium.org. I want you all to enter this email in your address books, please. Because everyone else, I thought I could come up here and tell you about what good practices we had at the University of Notre Dame when I directed the project there before joining the consortium staff. But I thought it would be better to talk with you about best practices for consortium members that I've observed from all those conversations in between sips of coffee. Meena and Philipp have talked, and Pedro, about some of those best practices, and some of them will be obvious to you. First of all is to join the conversation. You need to share with us your best practices. And some of your colleagues here have already done some amazingly good work. Sorry, I use amazing over and over again because that's the best way to describe what seems to happen around the world in this movement, of sharing with us the work that they are doing on projects. The one that comes to mind most readily, Philipp mentioned the Toolkit Project. And what you may or may not know is that the accessibility team for the Toolkit Project was largely worked on. I worked on all of it, which means, again, I told other people what to do. I said, we need something on accessibility. And your colleagues and mine from the Open University of Catalunya stepped up to the plate and started writing pages, not only about what we already know about accessibility, but about what we don't know about how to do accessibility right, what problems we still have, and what little we know about it, what projects are starting. So one of the things I need to tell you about how to exercise best practices in OCW consortium membership is to share with us the problems you are trying to solve, even if you've just barely started working on them, because that is how collaboration takes place. You say, I am starting to think about this problem, and someone else says, I'm starting to think about that problem too. Why don't we think about it together? That's how these collaborations take place. If you wait until you've done it already, there isn't room for someone else to jump in with you, and your project will be almost inevitably less rich because it won't have those other voices. Our technical director, Clay Whipke, is working on, again, encouraging people to come together and collaborate in the earliest stages of technical projects, developing tools for OpenCourseWare production. So if you are trying to solve a problem or you are working on a solution, use the feedback email, which fortunately goes to all of us, to tell him about it so that he can let the technical working group know, and you can get partners in these projects. So first thing, tell us about Little Attempts. What do you, I guess I should put my glasses on more closely so I know what, I don't have to say I shouldn't see. Okay, that's the other thing you have to do in delegating, is to trust people that they won't, put rabbit ears behind your head while you're speaking. The second thing is to tell us about your problems. Tell us about your mistakes. That's not too negative a word. Not only because that helps us help you, helps us know what struggles you're having that we might be able to address. The advantages of a global consortium is even if someone in your own set of colleagues isn't able to help you, chances are someone in the world has had that problem before. But again, it helps us know that we're not alone in having that problem. That's always good for morale. And it helps us all think together about how to do that work differently. So when you're thinking about your problems, don't think of them as failures. Think of them as contributions that you can make to the conversation. We all work better for knowing what we are and are not doing that works. And indeed, even if something didn't work in your context, there might be something different in my context that will allow that same attempt to work. So again, tell us about what mistakes you've made. And that leads me to a third thing. We need you to whine. Whine, complain, moan, and do it loudly, and do it to that email. Oh, sorry, I'm pointing, well, to that email. It's that one. If you were facing the other way, you'd see it over there too. Let us know what we're not doing right. Don't just whine to your friends, whine to all of us so that we can hear you. Because otherwise, again, we don't know how to do it better next time. This organizational effectiveness meeting your board and again, some guests engaged in was, in some sense, collective whining, right? Whoa, this didn't work. How can we make it work better? But in the end, it was productive whining. We were able to begin thinking about how we can make things work better, because that's why we're here. We want to change the world. And we don't change the world by pretending it's perfect. We do it by recognizing where the problems are, and particularly where the problems are that we have the gifts to share and address. So your whining may feel like whining, but to us, it's information. We're very we're good on sharing our course materials, but we need to be better at sharing our experiences. And hopefully it's not all whining. Hopefully some things are working, and that brings me to another project that we're working on. Our new communications and outreach director, Michael Caulfield, is working on developing networks to improve our communications. I was struck by the wide range of languages that Pedro was demonstrating to us on your portal. And if you've gone to our portal, you know that the global consortium is not particularly global when it comes to its spread of languages. It's just in English, which I'm sure is frustrating for many, many people. But we need your help to fix that. And one of the things that Mike is doing is trying to develop networks of people who will help us translate our communications into a variety of different languages so that we can make those better, so that it is no longer simply a speak English or speak to yourself situation. Again, we need you to join into that to make it work. And many of you, again, are already doing that, and I want to thank you for that. Again, that's part of what makes my day enjoyable, getting to talk to you, but I want to talk to more of you. I think that's all I'm going to say.
Muchas gracias. Tenemos unos minutos antes del café para tener una conversación con los ponentes. Bueno, Pedro está ahí atrás, también lo ha escapado. Podemos preguntarle a esto algunas cuestiones. Por favor, si alguien quiere aprovechar para hacer alguna pregunta, podemos aprovechar ahora. ¿Alguna intervención, Terri?
Jesus, you have to use because otherwise they can't be translated.
¿Dónde? No, pero ahí no hay micrófono de sala.
Thank you very much. I apologize for my English. First, I want to introduce myself, Benani, from president of Agadir University in Morocco. This is my first contact with the OCW. And I want to ask if it is possible 2 questions and to give with my colleagues one information. The first question is how to facilitate the readability of courses in different environments and different cultures. We saw an example with the translation, language translation in different languages. I'm asking, translation, language translation, is it enough to use the course in a good quality? What about cultural or culture specificities and pedagogic approaches? The second question is, I suppose a teacher from Morocco wanted to get a course from a colleague in Spain and to transform it and to use it in its environment. Is it possible? How to do that? Thank you. And if is it possible, my colleague will give us one information about an event in Agadir. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'd like to as well thank you for giving us the opportunity to be with you today and learn about the different experiences. I'm a teacher at an engineering school in Rabat, and I also help Mr. Benani with his work at the Moroccan Virtual Campus. And he is the national coordinator. And we are trying, of course, to encourage teachers to develop, of course, digital contents and to share the content with, worldwide as well. And this, there's going to be a conference that's going to be held in Agadir, the 26th and 28th of March. And it is about sharing content worldwide, of course, within the Mediterranean region. But that does not exclude other, of course, countries to be partners. And we are seeking, of course, the participation of other countries, institutions, and individuals as well. So I do have, yes, the title of the conference is Open Digital Space for the Mediterranean. And you will find all the details, of course, and information in these pamphlets. I will put them to you to consult, of course. And of course, we are here to answer all questions related to the conference. And thank you for having us as well.
Should I go ahead? I'll go ahead and answer the question of how to, the big answer to the question of how sorry, I've got to take this off. It's so strange listening to myself speak as I speak. It's too distracting. The first answer to your question about how a faculty member would use a piece of material on OpenCourseWare would simply be, yes, please do. What's more, please encourage faculty to use these materials and to transform them into that local context, because you're quite right. Just translating the language is not enough. You have to translate it into the cultural context and into the appropriate pedagogical context, because that will change. When we talk about getting the best courses out there, we recognize that the notion of quality for a course has much to do with its appropriateness to the particular students to whom that material or with whom that material is being taught. So we would encourage these transformations, legally derivative works of OpenCourseWare materials and the sharing of those materials. This is a time to put another plug in for metadata so that it's easy for people to identify this is material that started out here and has been transformed for this context. We need more examples of that. One of the things that our board was discussing was our frustration that we don't have a very good window into those kinds of localizations of material. We need to know more about how that is happening, what the frustrations are in doing that, again, so that we can all better prepare our content to make that process easier for you, so we can develop tools to make that process easier for you all as faculty, as directors of faculty. So again, feedback. Oops, she changed the slide. So you can talk with us about specific issues, but the big answer is yes. Part of the material being open is as an invitation for that kind of transformation to take place, and then feed it back to us so that we can learn about that process. Thanks.
I'll very briefly mention something about the translation project. With the Thanks. Oh, okay. I'd like to say something very short about the translation project, and that is, with this translation project, I published a very short study guide for the students to use. For example, if you go to one of the courses that our students were translating was this Financial Markets by Professor Schiller. And when you go to the class sessions, you have the transcript of the lecture. As I mentioned, Koreans are not English speakers at all. So when they can hear the lecture and when they can see the transcripts like this, they get to practice English for academic purposes. So I have a little guidebook on how to practice English for academic purposes so that they can be prepared for graduate studies abroad or just for English studies within Korea. So as for the pedagogical methodology or what is effective, what is not effective, there are still many more trials for me to do, but I do try to give a little guideline to the students and the users as to how they can best utilize the courses.
That's a good point.
That'll be all.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the interventions. Can the translator hear me?
Can you hear?
No.
No.
No. Maybe just use this one here.
Here, try this microphone.
Vale. Ahora, este sí. Thank you very much for the interventions. I have I'm Meena García-Barbero. I'm the Vice President for International Relations from the University Miguel Hernández in Alicante. And we are very much the leadership of the university in incorporating the university into this program, or whatever we want to call it. But I have two questions, and some of them were posted to me. The first time I said, oh, maybe we can join this OpenCourseWare course. And I didn't know very much at that time either, so I was quite naive. But they are basically related with the intellectual property in this case. First, our teachers, some were scared that if they put the materials there, I mean, when you write an article for a journal, of course you have all the references to other people. But when you prepare a class, you usually don't write all the references. So if you use that material and you try to put it in this, how does it work? How do you do it as more of a scientific article like you were to publish it? Or you can use somebody else's ideas as you usually do when you teach, but you don't keep telling who has done that unless they are concrete phrases or very concrete issues. That's one question. Second one is, how does it work in terms of intellectual property rights? In terms that if you put something on the system, somebody else picks it up, translate it or not, because the problem at the end will be the same. You have to refer to the original. Do you put it as you are, even if you have modified and adapted to your situation, as the President of Agadir has said? How do you manage that intellectual property rights for others? Okay, thank you.
I can give you my perspective, then maybe Terri can add on the behalf of the whole consortium. But so these are questions that all academics ask. We've talked about copyright issues and intellectual property a lot, and every institution has slightly different needs, but everyone is really concerned about intellectual property. And it sometimes can be a headache, especially if you involve lawyers. But so I hope there are no lawyers here. But the fundamental thing is you always retain the copyright of your materials. So if you're the author, you always own those materials. And you have a choice of licenses that you can use, which control exactly what other people are allowed to do with it. And there are a few options you can choose. So, for example, you could say that if they want to transform them, then they have to also share them back with you. They're legally required. And what all of these have in common is that they always have to attribute the original author. So there's no possibility for someone to take your materials and then change one word and say it's their material. They always have to say the original author of this is that university or that academic. The question about potential infringement, the first question, is a little more complicated. And I think this is an area that a lot of the members of the consortium and also the consortium itself is working on removing some of those legal problems there. But the law would say that any material you publish on your website cannot infringe other people's copyright, and the details are a little bit different in every country, what is allowed for educational purposes, etc. So there's no easy answer there. Maybe Terri has an easy answer.
I was going to move it to my stand, but I guess I can use the same one. This is what I did at Notre Dame. I also had faculty who were very concerned about this and very anxious. And what I tend to do is reflect the question back on their own good sense of honest practice in teaching. We all teach what we have been taught. That is part of the fabric of teaching. It's a handing down. And what we are doing in OpenCourseWare is handing out more broadly what has been handed down to us. And I think there is a general recognition that we are not, of course we're not making everything up originally. So there's a certain tolerance in the lecture for the transformation of what we have been taught. And transformation is part of the important piece there, because it actually, in many legal contexts, is an important category. But, I'm not going to go too far on that, because again, it does vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. When you are using directly someone else's work, you generally know that you're doing it. And then clear attribution is essential. So in the case we were talking about before, where you are taking someone else's work and you are translating it into a different language and cultural context, you would say something like, this material has been adapted from or translated from, depending on which is appropriate to the case, this other scholar's work. In other cases where it's harder to say, here's a paragraph that's this big and here's the piece, right? That's the easy cases where we know exactly where the boundaries are. The more difficult case is where the work has been deeply influenced by someone else's work, but isn't a verbatim copy. And I usually have, and I know that there are other OpenCourseWare directors who also encourage this, is to acknowledge somewhere on the page the influence of those other works. The same way you would in teaching say, I would also recommend the work of. For further reading, see. You can get more information, with much thanks to. There are a number of natural ways of acknowledging the contributions of those other scholars without having to necessarily say this sentence was taken here. And when the faculty member cannot remember honestly, there's a lot of good faith effort involved here where exactly that work came from. Now, if it's an image, right, there are many things where it simply takes vigilance and you have to do the work of tracking it down. But again, where it's an influence issue and remembering what you learned from 30 years ago is a problem, that's the way we address it, with a general good faith effort towards acknowledging our benefit from others. Andy, do you want to?
Sorry for putting you on the spot here, Steve, but do you want to mention the Elsevier project as an example? Any opportunity?
Two things that I would add. One is I think sometimes that there's too much emphasis on the legal. And in fact, what is more important in my mind sometimes is academic practice and what is good academic practice in terms of citing one's sources and giving credit where credit is due. And generally, if you're doing that already, then you've taken care of most of the legal issues. And you'll find that people, if you have inadvertently forgotten to give someone credit for a piece of their work that's ended up on your site, in most cases they'll just come to you and ask you to make the correction on your site. And I say this with a great deal of experience. MIT OpenCourseWare has published around 2,000 courses. Each year we address and deal with something like 2,000 or 3,000, actually 6,000 individual pieces of intellectual property. And we have missed some things along the way, and we have not yet been sued for any of these things. So I think within the academic community, the risks for legal action are a lot smaller than I think people think. And we've also, as Philipp indicated, we've worked with Elsevier, which is one of the big academic publishers in the U.S., and concluded an agreement with them that gives us blanket permission at MIT to use charts, graphs, images out of their journal articles in our OpenCourseWare publication. And it's a situation that works for both parties, because it had been a situation where we were coming to Elsevier, several times a week with requests to use little tiny images in our OpenCourseWare, and they were granting permission. But it was a lot of work for them to do that, and it was a lot of work for us to do that. And so we finally said, well, this is silly. Nobody is really concerned that there's a commercial issue here. We're not stealing the core value of these long journal articles by publishing small images out of them. And in fact, we were helping Elsevier because we were advertising the value of their product, and people were going and buying those journal articles to learn more. So I think it's a lot less adversarial in most cases than people expect, and it's just the influence of the primarily U.S. music and movie industries that has made for such an antagonistic situation around intellectual property.
Sorry. I'll just go up to the front. I'm Alda Lane from the Open University in the United Kingdom. You'll be hearing from me later. I think just one other aspect I think might have been behind the question that to perhaps pick up is in dealing with faculty and professors and trying to convince them, why should I do this, and what are their fears? Why would they be worried about putting their material out? I think it's worth, you need to address their concerns, but you also need to try and show some of the positives of it. I mean, are they concerned that their material being out there is not going to look as good as they would want it to? But I think, as we've heard, part of the process of doing this is that you can help. Now, if you get it sorted out, whether it's through very formal means or through using students and other things, you can help the professors to get their material into a form in which they will be very happy for it to be published. So they don't need to worry so much about, it doesn't look, these notes don't look as good, or it's not how I'd like people out there to see it. So you've obviously got to allay their fears about making sure that what will be published looks respectable. And then following the sort of the good academic practices. I think the other side I've mentioned, and Pedro was showing how things happen overall with the site. What has been very interesting as more OpenCourseWare is published within universities is also the higher profile individual professors can get with their particular courses. If it's seen well, they get a much wider profile. Even in cases, and some professors will say this, I want to write a textbook on this and try to get a bit of money out of this rather than that. Even in cases where people also want to publish a textbook in a similar area, often the publicity and recognition through the open material as opposed to what might be the sort of closed textbook They get improved sales, improved recognition. The whole experience of the openness is that it helps improve matters. It helps improve the materials. It helps improve the sort of reputations of individuals and of institutions. And I know, I expect Steve would say this, I know from MIT, as they've published more and more courses, one of the big values has also been within the institution, with the different professors able to see what other professors are doing, and, oh, that professor's teaching another course on this program I'm in. I didn't know they were doing that. Oh, I'll make some adjustments to my program, my course, because of what they're doing. So it's improving the educational experience for the students. So it's looking at that positive way of saying, doing this generally leads to benefits, and all the concerns you have not been borne out in experience. We don't have, it's difficult to find examples where, as Steve said, where people have misused the material in gross ways or done things with the material which people would not like. It's generally been very positive.
Just really quickly, I did want to add that Elsevier has expressed a desire to expand this kind of agreement with other organizations. So we can't sign, the consortium itself cannot sign on behalf of other members of the consortium, of the individual universities. But if your university is interested in a similar agreement with Elsevier, they've expressed an interest in that.